Kyle here, Odys Mentor, and today I'm going to be giving you my growth blueprint for mydigitalcomics.com. So I have a big list here of items which I'd like to cover, so let's just basically get into it. So My Digital Comics, what I love about this domain is highly brandable, obviously. Sounds great, great name, has a great ring to it, but on top of that, it's a partial match, so you have the word comic in there. So comics is a huge niche, but I do like that it's in there because it does make it targeted. So Google is going to know right away what this domain is about, and generally I find this is a huge advantage for just ranking faster, right? So it is quite targeted. So moving on from there, if I open this domain up, so again, here we can see that it's a DR17 and a lot of niche specific links. So I'm just going to open this up here into Ahrefs. So we have mydigitalcomics.com. So if I just search for something like comic, right? So not only is the name very targeted, but the overall backlink profile itself is very targeted as well. So as you can see here, we have a DR74, close to 100,000 visitors per month, in traffic, and it's Comic Beats, Comic Alliance. So another one here, DR73. We have some more, which is a little bit lower DR, but it's very targeted, right? So there's no doubt, and this is just the exact term. There's many more other niche specific links in here, but this is just what I'm finding right off the bat, just comic. So there's no doubt what this domain is about, right? In terms of the backlink profile and the name. And I really love that. So moving on from the name and also the backlink profile, there's no actual screenshot or anything of way back. So I do have this open up for you here. So My Digital Comics, you could see here, so it's about comics, about digital comics, no guess there. Now there is, I'll come back to this a little bit. As you can see, this is a little bit, you could say potentially a little bit of a naughty niche, potentially, but it doesn't mean you have to stick with this, but you kind of get a sense based on these covers what this was about. So I'll cover that a little bit later on, but here we have the way back. So, and it looks like it was actually selling comics. So it was not necessarily a blog, but it was actually selling comics, which is another opportunity for you down the path. So moving on to the actual other reasons, the community and so on. I mean, there's a huge community of comic book lovers. I mean, they're proud nerds, I would say. I don't call them nerds, but they're quite proud to be comic nerds, basically. So for example, we have Comic-Con, which I think is actually going on right now as I'm recording this video, or soon, basically. So I am familiar with that, although I'm not a huge comic fan. I am quite familiar with the niche itself. So Comic-Con actually has, as of I think it was 2011 or something like that, 2021, had over 200,000 people which were attending Comic-Con in San Diego. That means you had 200,000 people. Most of them were traveling from outside of the city, traveling hours, maybe even flying, right, to attend this conference. So if that's not a passionate community, then I don't know what is. So on top of that, if you do additional research, you just check out some of the threads, some forums and so on. So you have specific comics like Marvel. You have, just one that's dedicated just to comic books here. And I found also DC Comics. So if you look at the numbers in these, is pretty astonishing. So you have 2.5 million, as they call themselves, true believers in the Marvel subreddit. You have 3 million true believers in the comic book subreddit here. So it's comic books. And then on top of that, you have 1 million Justice League members in the DC Comics subreddit. So just like there's a huge passionate community here. So it should be pretty easy for you to, find your little sub niche and target those people, figure out what they want. So moving on from there, so the competitors, what's the opportunity look like? So here I have some notes. Now there's a lot more competitors, obviously. These are just the top 3 that I found. Not even the top 3, just some 3 that I found, which are pretty consistent, and I found them pretty quickly. So we have My Comic Book Shop, which is a DR65. This is to kind of give you, obviously they're much higher DR, but to give you some insight into the niche if you kind of want to look at what they're doing. And they're actually as some opportunity, basically, like where you could end up potentially over time if you put in the work. So I have them open up right here. And you can see it's all about buy, sell, trade, consign, collect. Like there's obviously a niche here, not even about the actual content itself, but just all related to buying and selling. So this is definitely an angle that you could pick on. And I only covered basically on the niche here. I only covered kind of the DC comic side, the Marvel side. This is kind of the more well-known, but within that, there's so many more sub niches that you could cover, right, to kind of find your angle. So if you're a comic book lover or anime, anything like this, you could, and you already have kind of some niche expertise, you could start there. I'm just giving you some high level overview, but you could start where there's demand, right, based on your own personal experience. So again, you can get a lot of more ideas here. And there is obviously some buying intent because there is a website dedicated to buying and selling. I'm sure they're making some money, potential affiliate program, and so on. So there's one example, buying and selling. And of course, as we mentioned before, they were selling digital comics, so it fits quite nicely. On top of that, you have some more kind of what we're familiar with, which is like content websites. We have Comic Book Treasury. comic book treasury, I believe. So here we can see they're DR11 with 45,000 traffic in Ahrefs. So this particular niche, as I mentioned before, is DR17. So you would outrank them on a DR perspective. So it shouldn't be too much harder to kind of copy their keywords as your framework to kind of to in fact steal their traffic. You know, it's a cold world, but this is life. You just go in there and rob their traffic. That's what the game's all about, right? So that's part of it here, which I really like. So this is like a good roadmap for you to kind of follow. And if you just open them up, you can see it's mostly it's mostly a content website. If we just have a quick look at them, you can see it's just Amazon, right? Typical stuff, targeting all that, you know, different things basically. Answering different questions and so on, right? So now moving on from there, there's another one here. It's just a DR12, 1.1 thousand, just another one which I found. And you can expand on each one of these to find competing domains to help build out your list of competitors. So that's kind of like can help plan your content roadmap, which then moves on to my next point here. So how would I approach the content plan? So I would go build out the list of all of these subreddits that you can find related to comic books. So I just have 3 here. There might even be hundreds, but build out as many as you can just to really help create that list, and then move on from there and do the same thing for the competitors. I would definitely focus on competitors that are under, I made a note here, which is, you know, DR less than 15 if you're a DR 17. Even better if you can find a lot that are under DR 10, so you know you can really smash the competition. Build out all those competitors and then figure out what they're ranking for. Basically, export their keywords. You can use a tool like Keyword Cupid, but that's kind of like the framework that I would use. I would build it on DR first, and then you could add, if you wanted to filter that further, you could add some additional metrics like KD. I would shoot for less than KD less than 5. So that's kind of that would be like the foundation of the content plan itself. Kind of give you a roadmap, but I would see where there's kind of overlap and where there's maybe gaps in the market or gaps in the competition that you can focus on and maybe try there. Alternatively, what you could do is you could find out where you know that you already have an interest if you're a comic book fan, and really drill down in that point and become like the niche expert on that particular topic within the comics. So like one specific type of comic, or, you know, one specific type of, you know, action hero or villain, whatever it might be, right? So I would really drill down there. Another note, which I'll add, is there's a big opportunity here, which I think is no guarantee, of course, like everything else, but there's a big opportunity for things like Google News and Google Discover. So in my experience, I have found that really niche specific topics, especially ones that might be trending. So Comic-Con might be trending right now. Some new booths at Comic-Con might be trending, some new features, some new comic book, some new character, some new release of the new movie, which was a remake of a specific comic book. These types of things, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of get featured in Google News and Google Discover. And I've personally had this change my sites. You know, I've had million plus page views per month with the help of Google Discover. So there's a big opportunity there. And that's really just about publishing a lot of content and just kind of getting familiar with your niche. And I think this has to do with content consistency. So, and a bit of a higher velocity. But the good thing about this is that it's always changing. So you might get a big spike. It might not be evergreen, but because it's not evergreen, that also opens up an opportunity for you, which I mentioned here, which is like the first mover advantage. So if you could be the first one to release a particular article or answer the question, whatever that people are searching for that's trending, then that's a competitive advantage. And then on top of that, if you have an email list and people want to know about, you know, the new X-Men or something, you can send them an email with like timely information, which, you know, comic book fans in general really love. So this is a big, in my opinion, this is an advantage that you could hit. So I would focus on the kind of your foundational stuff. And once you start figuring out what works, I would really try to cover some of the more timely things to help make yourself stand out. Of course, that is going to require a little bit more work and some more, you know, niche expertise. But I think that's an opportunity for you to build yourself as a brand. So again, I just have some additional notes here. I would recommend definitely niching down if you can. You can base this on competition, like I mentioned before, or what your own interest is, or wherever there's some competitive gaps in the market where there's not as many people covering, say, a popular comic book. Some additional notes here regarding ChatGPT. Just using them as a help. Basically, I just always have this here, basically just helping you to organize your site. If you're getting frustrated with all your keywords, ChatGPT is a good tool to use to help categorize your topic semantically and so on. And then avalanche method basically is just publishing one post per day. So if we're looking for a goal to attain, the recommendation that I always give for everyone on every site is to publish 1 article per day minimum. This is an attainable goal if you're like a solo builder. Basically, you don't have a team to outsource. Every day in the morning or every day in the evening, you just write up 1 article. Basically, once you have your whole content plan together, write it up, edit it quick, and publish it. Just stick with that, and consistency, in my opinion, will pay off over time. So that would be the goal. That's kind of the minimum that I would recommend for everyone starting out on a niche site specifically. And if you can't, quite frankly, if you can't, if you can't commit to 1 article per day and kind of put in that time if you're starting out, then maybe it's not going to be the right choice for you, right? So now if you have a team and you can do more than that, if you can do 180 in the first month, all the power to you, and kind of let that sit. That's also a good strategy. So basically, the more content, the faster. 180, I think, is a good target though. 180 articles over 180 days, or 180 articles in the first however long it's going to take you. Now, in terms of monetization, as always, I'm recommending ads. So to start, you could do Ezoic. And then once you get approved, if you have already an account with Raptive, or also known as AdThrive, if you already have an account with them, then you're only going to need 30,000 visitors per month. And again, it shouldn't be hard to get that based on just like the overall volume of users or people that are interested in comics in general, right? So again, here we have 2.5 million true believers. So you should be able to carve out your path pretty simply. So that's it. Starting with Ezoic, and then moving to Raptive. And then also, if you don't have a Raptive account, Mediavine is your next best bet with 50,000 visitors per month. Now, the opportunity as well is selling merch. So whatever merch, it could be your own merch, which is great. You can sell your own products. So you could sell your own digital comics like the old owner used to do. You could have somebody else's merch that you're selling. You could have an affiliate program. You could have your own t-shirts. You could have your own little meme t-shirts. There's a lot of opportunity here for different kinds of products, and they don't have to be so expensive that people might just buy on impulse. So I've seen this on, there's plenty of e-commerce sites as well that are selling merch. You could potentially reach out to them to set up an affiliate program, or you could just go back to trusty Amazon, which is always kind of a safe bet, for this type of merchandise. And it's easy to set up those links, right? So on top of that, I did mention, here's a little bit of a side note, which I said I was going to come back to when we look at this. This does look, in my opinion, a little X-rated, right? I mean, and some people are really into that. I don't judge you if you are, but this could sell quite well if you have your own little. Now, this is if you're feeling bold, right? If you want to kind of make it a little bit more X-rated, then this could be an opportunity for you to sell something a little bit more X-rated. And as we all know, sex sells. This is an evergreen niche. Morals aside, this is the reality of things. So if you're open to that, this is definitely an opportunity for you to kind of take a little bit of a naughty spin on it, and so on. But I would definitely pick a lane before. I would definitely pick, like, are we going to make this a little bit more X-rated if that's what you're into? Or are we going to make this like, PG and target, mostly like DC Comics and stuff? Make that decision first, and then just go with that, stick with that, basically is what I would recommend. You don't want to have a kid coming to your site and seeing some little X-rated digital comic, which you're trying to promote. Like this, to me, it's just seeing this is not kid-friendly, in my opinion. So that's it. But it's a big opportunity as well. As we mentioned, that's a whole new niche in itself that you could cover. So once you have all that, again, once you have some traffic, setting up an email list, sending them new updates, new features, new merchandise, promoting that. Now, are there any drawbacks on this? What I would say is that it's a DR17, which is respectable for starting out, 151 referring domains, but it's not the strongest DR level. So it doesn't have the most backlinks, doesn't have the highest authority, like the many high authority backlinks. There's good links still, and it's still going to be enough to get you to, make a good income, probably job replacement income as is, if you do it right and you target the low competition keywords. But if you want to go after something a little bit higher, more competitive, then you are going to have to do some additional link building, in my opinion, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Just keep that in mind, right? You're not going to be able to take over the comic book niche with a DR17. It's going to require a little bit more work, a little bit more link building. On top of that, some of the content, I will say, is like comic book fans can be quite disgruntled. They're a passionate bunch. So you have to be, in order to build your brand, I would say you have to have some level of expertise, or hire somebody that has some level of expertise in the particular comic book niche. Because if you get something wrong, for example, there's some topics here. So I have Reddit open if you wanted to look at some keywords, but like if you wanted to do there's some VS keywords here, or who would win, like Justice League versus Justice League Unlimited, or there's certain, I've seen this in the past where there's like certain showdowns between, like, say it's like, whatever, Batman versus Spider-Man or something like this, who would win? If somebody's a diehard, and there is diehard Spider-Man fans, I'm using this as an example, if you're not framing them right, they can become quite angry. So just keep that in mind. So the details really count in this niche. The details really count for any niche that you're trying to build your brand in, but just I think they matter a lot more in this particular niche because I have seen, comic book fans become quite angry. So just keep that in mind. If you have any questions about the domain or the blueprint in general, the blueprint on any other domains, feel free to book a call with me today, and I'll be more than happy to walk you through any one of these steps, answer any one of your questions, or we could even cover any other domain that you might have a question about. So, but the main thing is just book a call with me today, and I'll be more than happy to help you out. That's all. Thanks for your time.